So, if we can flick to the next slide, because I can't remember them off the top of my head, if that's okay. Thank you, darling. So, the first one is this is actually from the end of 2022, the Women in the Workplace Survey by McKinsey. You'll know that I like to try and round up all of them. So, if I miss any, please always let me know. But McKinsey's final one, the thing that it looked at, the big kind of headline that came out of it, was the number of women who are moving, particularly senior women. It actually stated that senior women are moving at a rate that they haven't done at any point in history, right? So I actually really, I did a talk for another organisation a few weeks ago, and I tried to hammer home the point with them, which is women are actively leaving your organisations, like, faster than ever. So if you are thinking, how do we improve our gender pay gap? How do we improve the women at senior level? How do we think about the pipeline? The answer is you are already too late, because you are going to go down before you go back up again. And because we've had a few years where people haven't really moved that much, where numbers have been going up, it's all looked great. Everyone's kind of forgotten there was ever a problem. We're all quite relaxed about it. And in about 2 years' time, you are all going to have a massive panic. Well, not you, because you will know, but your boards are going to have a massive panic. And they'll be like, what? We thought we had a network. What's going on here? So I just think there's lots and lots of data out there at the moment that really supports investment in supporting the women in your organisation. So I would go grab that data and think about what you can do with it. 2/3 of women in the UK from underrepresented groups have experienced racism in the workplace. This came out this week. I actually think this is low, honestly. I would have thought it was more than that, but some interesting stats to have a look at there. There is a big report from the US. So the US actually produces a really great labour report every quarter where it looks at all the employment stats. It's really interesting if you're into that kind of thing, which I am. But this quarter looked at the state of women. And it found that actually, while there had been a decrease of women in the labour market during COVID, that's actually now picked back up and women coming back to the workforce. But what's happening in particular is that they're coming back part-time, they're coming back on flexible contracts, they're not looking perhaps at the same level of seniority as when they were out before, so their expectations have really changed. Also, there is a drive for just people to be earning. So people are taking jobs that they are perhaps overqualified for, that is not paying as well, which we'll talk about in a minute. Although we're bringing more women back to the workforce, the roles they're taking are not the same as the ones they had before. Women pass 40% of European financial services boards, but hurdles still remain. What a mouthful that one is. This is the report that looks at the number of women on boards. Obviously, in the financial services sector, which I know lots of you are in, women have hit the 40% mark. Who can tell me what the kicker is on this? Tell me why this is not so great. Anyone? Yes? They're all Neds. Exactly. They're all Neds. Part of me thinks this is maybe like a lovely chance for us all to have portfolio careers and be paid large amounts of money for doing 1 day a month, a quarter. But unfortunately, there aren't that many jobs to go around, so the rest of us have to keep climbing up the ladder. The Neds have increased. The number of women at executive board levels really have not. And that I have been saying that for so many years now. So we need to really think about how we change that. And that's echoed in the report from Cranfield and EY. So the number of women at executive board levels is like barely moved. It's gone up, I think, 3% in like a decade. It's nothing. Now, there was some really interesting, I saw some really interesting commentary around why this is. One which I'll get to in a minute. But one of the things that I think we do need to talk about is if we are getting women to senior roles and we're getting women through the organisation and we're seeing increases at all levels of the pipeline except at executive board level, what is it about those roles that means that women are not getting them? And is it the fact that we still think that we should have men in those roles, consciously or unconsciously? We know that for organisations where they have kind of quotas around interview candidates, so they'll say we want to have at least 50-50, a gender split of 50-50, that does not make a difference to who actually gets the job. So the women will get the interview, they'll spend a lot of time prepping for the interview, they are no more likely to get the job. Or is it the other way around? Is it that actually The women are actually getting to that job and thinking, do you know what? This is not for me. Thanks very much. I'm not going to be paid much more. I'm going to have a load more responsibility. I'm going to be sitting at the boardroom table trying to shout my way into the conversation. I'll pass. Thanks. There is, I think, a really interesting piece of research to be done as to what is going on there. Okay, speaking of this, do enough women want leadership roles? I don't know. They need to speak up more. Anyone know who said that? It only came out yesterday, so Vanessa. It is indeed the new chair of the 30% Club. Yeah. And it's actually in the Telegraph. Yeah, which I did put on my LinkedIn. I don't have a Telegraph login because they charge you for it and I don't want to give them my money. So can somebody please, with a Telegraph login, read it for me and tell me if this is really as tone deaf as I think it is, or if it's just me being trolled by the headline writers. And the view from my Telegraph reading friends was that it was pretty tone deaf. I get really, really... Sorry, 30% Club. I get really, really angry at this because it fundamentally denies the research, which shows that actually when women do ask, when women do put their hands up, we are at best ignored and at worst punished for it. So we're called pushy or aggressive or difficult or too ambitious or above herself. Yeah. It also ignores some really interesting research that shows that the more women ask, the more they are told no. So actually we're taught that there's no point asking because we just always get a no. And on the really, really basic level, we're on a team, right? Play with your team. That's very angry about it this morning, sorry. I was like, I've come in on a commuter train. It's got me riled up. I also really like, if you're at this level, you can afford better PR than this. I can do better PR for you than this. So if any of you are speaking to the media and you're worried, please drop me an email first and we can chat about it. Okay, I won't charge you. I just don't want any more of these headlines. And then, slightly more positive, 4 ways to support women's leadership progression in a hybrid world. This is just a really nice piece looking at some of the things we can actually do when we're all hybrid to make sure we're not doing that stuff of leaving people out of meetings and making sure people are heard at all times, etc. We've seen the resignation this year of Jacinda Ardern. We all had a little cry. I think we all had a moment of recognition when she was like, do you know what? This is just too much now. I'm juggling too much. It's a really lovely, there were lots of comment pieces about it, but I really like this one on why it's actually refreshing to hear honesty about it. It's refreshing to hear somebody say, do you know what? I am not the right person for this job at this time. And I would love it if we could create a culture where that was normalised and celebrated. Women of colour set lower salary expectations than white men. You'll be unsurprised to know that everybody sets lower salary expectations than white men. But white women set it about 25% lower. Women of colour set it about 40% lower. So that's when people say, what's the minimum you will accept? That's what we're asking for. And again, that kind of comes back to the thing for me about the number of women on boards, which is that like ingrained in culture where we say, oh, this is what I'm going to ask for? Or is it actually the result of experience? Is it the result of being like, okay, I'm not getting that, so I'm just going to go with this? Yeah, something for us all to look at in there. And then finally, I don't know if you all heard about the slow quitting trend that happened last year. Or what was it? Quiet quitting. We were all quiet quitting at the end of life. I mean, I've been quiet quitting for a decade, so... But this year, apparently, we are all quick quitting. So this is a rise in the number of people leaving their jobs before the 1-year mark. So actually that kind of traditional piece where we say, oh, it's so terrible if you have less than a year on your CV. Gen Z are saying, I don't care. This place does not have a TikTok account. I'm out of here. Actually, what I really like about this is I think it says a level of standards. It says, actually, if this does not meet my standards, if this place is not going to look after me, if this place is not going to provide me with as much as I give it, I'm not sticking around. See you later. And I think we could all learn a little bit from that. Vote with your feet. That is all from me. It's sort of a little bit depressing, but not totally depressing. Thank you as ever for having me, Vanessa. And also, just on Vanessa's point about speaking in hybrid events, one thing that I always do when I speak is I offer for people to film it and clip it. So if they want to send it to people that aren't there, they can. I just do that as standard. Always ask your speakers because they will say yes. Okay. Thank you very much.